I know it's not a popular opinion, but I personally love Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush, and this is why I think you should give it a try. First of all, this review is entirely spoiler-free, so there's no need to worry about that. I'm just going to be covering some of the basic character information and also some of the reasons why I personally love this show. And just to get it out of the way, for anyone who's saying, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't good anymore, they fell off because they changed studios and Rush duels are terrible, I would like to respectfully say that although you are entitled to your opinion, I do believe that you are wrong. And I will go more into depth about why Go Rush is a good show in a later video, because my reasonings for why it's not super kiddie involve a lot of spoilers. But for now, we're just going to talk about general recommendation reasons and why I think you should at least give it a chance. Let's start by talking about the main trio of the characters. There's yugioh, a Valkyrian warrior who came from a distant galaxy to stop a war with Rush duels. So he came to Earth to learn about Rush duels, and he's going to use them to stop the war. That's his main motivation in the first season. Then there's the Odo twins, Yuhi and Yuamu. Their last name may sound familiar if you've seen Sevens, which it should. And, well, let's start by talking about yugioh. He's like my favorite character in the entire show, perhaps even the entire franchise. He's great, actually. Just in case you didn't know, he can shoot lasers out of his eyes, which is really awesome. And he's selfless, he's heroic, and he's just amazing, honestly. He's a great protagonist. And although he can be a bit naive at times because he's an alien and not used to many human things, he's still a really cool character. And one thing I really like about him is how, he's really supportive and trusting of everyone. He's always willing to believe that people can be better, even the bad guys. He always is believing in the good of other people. He's very optimistic. As for what cards he plays, because this is Yu-Gi-Oh!, he uses a brand new monster type, which is Galaxy, and he mainly uses light Galaxy monsters. His ace is Galactica Oblivion, which has a really cool attack name, which is... Unfortunately, they changed it in the dub to just Fight for the Light, Good Night, which is honestly a lot less cool. And another one of his main monsters is Transamu Rhynak, or Transam Linux in the official English version for some reason. It also has a really cool attack name that got ruined by the dub, because it's Maniac You Die. And however cool that is, I do understand why they would have changed it in the English version. Next up is the Odo twins, Yuhi and Yuamu. Yuhi is the oldest, so we'll talk about him first, but Yuamu runs their company, UTS. Yuhi starts off really silly. He's really goofy and fun at the start, although he does get a lot more serious, especially in Season 2. And at the start, his main motivation is that something called the Earthdama was stolen from him by an alien, so he keeps trying to hunt down aliens and look for it, specifically in the earliest couple of episodes. He uses mainly Jointech cards, which are an Earth Machine series based on... They remind me of those little, toys that you would put together to build colorful little animals. So their designs are really fun to look at. There's also, occasionally, stationary or power tools mixed in there. So it's pretty cool to look at their summon animations with the monsters, being built from just random objects. So those card designs are really cool. Next up, there's Yuhi's sister, Yuamu. She runs the company, UTS, which is Well, they call themselves an alien consultation company, but really they just do whatever jobs they can get, especially at the beginning of the show. And for a girl lead in a Yu-Gi-Oh show, Yuamu is actually a really good character. She isn't horribly mistreated or pushed aside like some other girl leads, and she even gets some really great moments to shine on her own. For example, in the earlier episodes, she's usually the one who makes up a clever plan, especially like when they're hunting down various urban legends and aliens and stuff. She's usually the one who makes up a clever plan to lure them out of hiding or figure out what's going on first. She's very intelligent, and she manages to remain an important character throughout the entire story, which is more than some other girl leads in this franchise could say. So I'd say she and Roman from Sevens are honestly the best girl leads Yu-Gi-Oh! Has ever had. Which isn't saying much, considering the track record, but still. As for the deck Yuamu plays, she uses high-tech dragons, which are exactly what they sound like. They're basically just dragons mixed with various types of technology or technology-related things, like websites, software testing phases, CAPTCHAs even. Her ace monster is Bluetooth Burst Dragon, which was changed to Blue Fang Burst Dragon in the English version for obvious reasons. And it also happens to be a play off the infamous Blue Eyes White Dragon, which is really cool, actually. It even has a similar attack name. So Yuamu is really cool. She's honestly she's probably my second favorite out of the main three, after Udius. And speaking of the main three, now that they're out of the way, we can talk about the rival, because it wouldn't be Yu-Gi-Oh! Without the rival. Yugioh Velgir was a commander in the Velgirian army before he, quote, died in battle, and was mysteriously revealed to be alive a couple episodes in. He acts as a main antagonistic force in Arc 1, and is a pretty serious looming threat throughout Season 1 entirely, though he does get a bit more friendly in the later seasons, as rivals tend to do. He also serves as a great contrast to a lot of Udius's ideals. So, while Udius wants to use rush duels to end the Velgirian War peacefully, Yugioh wants to use rush duels to crush and defeat absolutely anyone who stands in his way. He wants to use rush duels to end the war with violence rather than peacefully. And that leads to the main conflict of the first season. As for his deck, in contrast to Udius's light attribute galaxy monsters, he uses mostly dark attribute galaxy monsters, particularly Voidvelg. At least in terms of naming, Voidvelg cards are based off of various ancient mythological heroes, particularly from Greek or Norse mythology. They also have names drawn from various cosmic phenomena and occasionally signs of death, which definitely gives off a certain vibe. His ace monster is Voidvelg Requiem, which, in the original version, has one of the coolest summon chants I have ever heard. Unfortunately, they changed it in the dub, and from what we've seen in Duel Links, it's alright, I suppose, so that's cool. So I'd say those four are definitely the four main characters in the show. Means it's time to talk about some of the other really cool things in Go Rush, like how many different kinds of aliens there are. A lot of them draw inspiration from various urban myths and legends. So just to name a few examples, there's a Chupacabra, Skyfish, the Flatwoods Monster, Jersey Devils, fortune-telling hats, and a cat girl. Oh, and there are also dragon people that show up later, even though they aren't technically aliens. At least the ones we see aren't. Similar to in Sevens, a really fun thing about Go Rush is how almost no one is a filler character. If they show up and they play a significant role, they will show up again. And even though there are so many characters, I've never had any trouble trying to remember who they are or where they showed up, just because of how well they're all introduced and handled. Almost everyone has at least one or two unique and interesting moments, which is another thing I really love about both Sevens and this show. One of the final points about why I love this show is hard to get into without getting into spoiler territory, but I'll try and explain it the best I can like this. Show has a lot of really interesting themes, and it also manages to strike a really good balance between comedy and serious, although the first episodes are mostly comedy. The way the themes are portrayed through the characters and their motives is always really cool to me, because they always feel so real and human. Like, for example, there's one character whose arc is about love, and there's one character whose motivations involve having a lot of empathy for other people, even if she doesn't have much of a reason to get involved otherwise. There's a major plot point about one character figuring out what it means to be truly alive, and it is beautiful. It's how all of these characters are affected by the events happening in the overall plot, and how they change and grow, and how real some of their motivations feel, that makes me love this show so much. Yeah, it may not be the best show in the world, but I personally love it, and I really, really hope you give it a shot, especially considering that the dub is coming out soon, in January. So it's going to be easier than ever to access and watch over here in the United States. So overall, I'd say Go Rush is a really great show, and you should definitely give it a shot if you haven't already. Good